Ladies and gentlemen, start with this image: a senior diplomatic heavyweight standing in the halls of global power looking across at a former US president and saying, "Sit down, boy." No hesitation, no flinching, just crisp words loaded with meaning, because this isn't just about politics, it's about pride, it's about dignity, it's about telling the world enough. Today, you and I watch history in the making, not just in the decisions, but in the tone. In the moment when respect is demanded, not begged for. When a leader shuts down arrogance with nothing but words. Let me tell you, in international affairs, that is the loudest sound. Power dynamics and diplomacy are often judged by what is said behind closed doors, but more importantly by what is said publicly and how it is said. In the moment when Jaishankar chose to fire back with a sharp, dismissive phrase like, "Sit down," boy, he was doing far more than delivering a blunt remark to a political opponent. He was striking at the very hierarchy that has long defined global politics. For decades, the United States has spoken to other nations with an air of authority, almost as if lecturing students in a classroom. That tone of superiority has worked when others have remained quiet, but the world is not the same anymore. Nations like India are no longer willing to accept being patronized, and that shift in tone reflects a deeper reality. The balance of power is moving, and with it the language of diplomacy. When one country asserts itself in such a direct manner, it tells the world that diplomacy is not simply about politeness, protocol, or backroom deals. It is about perception. It is about establishing a narrative where you are not the junior partner, but an equal. Perhaps even the stronger voice in the room. Words like these are not carelessly thrown out. They are weapons sharpened over years of observing how language shapes power. By cutting through the usual politeness and saying what others only whisper, Jaishankar set a tone that resonates with a global audience tired of one-sided dominance. He made clear that in the 21st century, diplomacy cannot just be about who holds the biggest stick. It is also about who dares to challenge authority with confidence. There is also the symbolic layer to consider. The choice of phrase matters because it flips the script on the traditional roles. America has often been the one instructing, commanding, even dismissing others with language that reinforces its supremacy. To reverse that dynamic, to reduce a former president to the role of a boy being told to sit down, is not merely a rhetorical jab, it is a demonstration of confidence that says, "Your authority over us is no longer assumed." That shift in symbolism changes how the world views the conversation. Suddenly, the once dominant figure is no longer in control of the room. Suddenly, the one expected to be deferential is setting the tone. Diplomacy thrives on subtle power games. Every phrase, every pause, every slight change in tone can become a signal. When a leader speaks with that much boldness, it becomes a message not just to the opponent but to allies, rivals, and observers everywhere. To his own country, it is a signal of pride that their representative will not bow. To other nations, it is encouragement that it is possible to speak back against pressure. And to the United States, it is a warning that the days of unquestioned dominance are being challenged in real time. In a world where media clips circulate faster than official communiques, such moments redefine the global conversation. They demonstrate that respect is not handed down, it is demanded. And in that instant, diplomacy evolves from backroom negotiation into a public arena, where the boldest words can alter the perception of power itself. Verbal sparring in diplomacy is not just about witty exchanges or clever retorts, it is a calculated exercise in soft power. When leaders or diplomats choose to engage in sharp, precise language, they are doing far more than scoring a rhetorical point. They are influencing global opinion, shaping narratives, and sending signals of strength without firing a single shot or signing a binding treaty. In the case of Jaishankar's blunt response, it was not merely a personal comeback directed at an adversary. It was a statement of national confidence, crafted to be heard and remembered by audiences far beyond the immediate room. This is the true essence of soft power, the ability to persuade, to command respect, and to alter perceptions through nothing but words. In the traditional sense, diplomacy often emphasizes tact, restraint, and coded language. Yet, in the age of instant communication and viral clips, subtlety alone no longer carries the weight it once did. What resonates today are moments that pierce through the noise and demand attention. A verbal strike, when delivered with precision, can travel further than any policy paper or official communiqué. It conveys both authority and authenticity, showing that a leader is not afraid to confront arrogance directly. This is why such moments matter. They redefine the playing field where respect is negotiated not by concessions, but by confidence. Verbal sparring also carries with it an important psychological dimension. To publicly diminish an opponent with words is to shift the balance of power in real time. The audience sees not just the words but the reaction they provoke. When the target of such a statement hesitates, stumbles, or is left without a fitting response, the silence becomes its own confirmation of defeat. That is why these moments linger in memory long after the event itself. They are not about the insult alone, but about who controlled the room, who dictated the pace of the conversation, and who ultimately walked away with the upper hand. Soft power works best when it captures imagination, and verbal exchanges like these do precisely that. They give the public a symbol, an easily digestible moment that encapsulates broader geopolitical shifts. For those watching in India, such a response embodies national pride and resilience. For others around the world, it demonstrates that the hierarchy of voices is being disrupted. Even for critics in the United States, it is a reminder that American dominance in discourse is not guaranteed. This ability to reframe perceptions with a few words is why verbal sparring has become an increasingly vital tool in diplomacy. Importantly, this form of soft power does not rely on military might or economic leverage, though those may stand in the background. Instead, it is about creating a story, an image that reinforces strength and independence. In a global arena where attention spans are short and narratives matter more than ever, these verbal battles are not distractions, they are central to how influence is asserted. The world is watching, and sometimes the sharpest weapon in international relations is not an army or a sanction, but a perfectly timed phrase that leaves the other side speechless. America's reaction to a moment of sharp defiance is never confined to the immediate setting. It echoes through media cycles, political debates, and international analysis. When a statement like "sit down, boy" is directed at a figure as polarizing and influential as Donald Trump, the response within the United States is layered. On one hand, supporters of Trump perceive it as an affront, an insult to American prestige, and a challenge that cannot be ignored. They see it as an attack not just on the man but on the nation's standing. On the other hand, critics of Trump may secretly relish the exchange, interpreting it as overdue pushback against a style of politics that often thrives on dominance and intimidation. Yet, beyond the partisan divide, there lies an uncomfortable truth. For many Americans, the world is no longer automatically deferential, and the assumption of America's unchallenged authority is being eroded in front of global audiences. The media in the United States tends to magnify such incidents, treating them either as scandalous disrespect or as evidence of shifting power structures. Headlines focus on the insult itself, dissecting the tone, the choice of words, and the implications for U.S. foreign policy. Cable news debates turn it into a cultural moment, asking whether America has lost its grip on the respect it once commanded. While analysts may try to frame it as heated rhetoric or on diplomatic language, the deeper perception is more damaging. America, the nation that once dictated terms to the rest of the world, is now being openly confronted without hesitation. That is what leaves the political class unsettled, because it symbolizes a transformation in how U.S. authority is treated abroad. Internationally, the perception is far more nuanced. For countries that have long felt overshadowed by Washington's dominance, the remark becomes a rallying cry. It is replayed not just as a diplomatic spat but as proof that even the most powerful can be spoken to in blunt, unapologetic terms. For allies of the United States, it creates discomfort. They rely on America's leadership, but must also acknowledge that respect for that leadership is being tested. For rivals and emerging powers, The moment is celebrated because it demonstrates that the unipolar world order is slipping further into history. The symbolism of America being silenced, if only momentarily, reinforces the narrative that global politics has entered a new era of multipolarity. Public perception around the globe amplifies this effect. Social media clips and sound bites circulate far faster than formal diplomatic statements. The spectacle of a U.S. leader being dismissed resonates with audiences who crave authenticity and strength from their own representatives. In India, it fuels national pride, a sense that their voice matters and is finally being heard. In other regions, it signals that speaking boldly to Washington no longer results in immediate isolation or punishment. That shift in perception emboldens others, showing that the monopoly of power once held by America is increasingly vulnerable to words that cut deep. The global impact of America's reaction is therefore not just about politics but about psychology. If the world senses hesitation, shock, or defensiveness in Washington's response, it reinforces the image of a declining superpower struggling to maintain control of the narrative. If the response is aggression, it risks confirming the insecurity that lies behind the facade of strength. Either way, the perception outside America is shaped less by what officials say afterward and more by the fact that such a phrase could be spoken in the first place. In that instant, the old order is challenged, and the audience, global and domestic alike, takes note that the balance of respect has shifted. When a leader like Jaishankar delivers a sharp and unapologetic line aimed at a figure as high profile as Donald Trump, the message is never just confined to the room. It reverberates across multiple layers of audiences, domestic and international, and each group interprets it in a way that feeds into their own political, cultural, and emotional context. For the domestic audience, such a statement becomes an instant marker of pride. Citizens who have grown accustomed to seeing their leaders treated with condescension on global platforms suddenly witness a moment of reversal, where their representative does not merely endure but dominates. This sends a clear message at home: India is no longer willing to play second fiddle. It reassures the public that their leadership has the confidence and the strength to confront power directly, without hesitation or compromise. In a democracy where public perception fuels political legitimacy, these moments are invaluable because they translate into trust, admiration, and support. The domestic impact goes beyond emotional satisfaction. It also signals to businesses, institutions, and policymakers that the nation's leadership is assertive on the global stage. That assertiveness builds confidence in India's future, fostering a sense that the country is no longer reactive but proactive in shaping global debates. For young people, it carries symbolic weight. It reinforces the idea that their nation's voice matters as much as any other, and that their leaders will not tolerate being spoken down to. In a rapidly globalizing environment, this sense of dignity is not trivial. It feeds into national identity and strengthens unity around the notion that India deserves respect, not as an emerging nation, but as an established power. For the international audience, the message operates on a more complex level. To allies, it is a reminder that India will not be easily swayed or pressured. Partnerships with such a nation must be conducted on equal terms, with mutual respect rather than assumption of hierarchy. This recalibration forces even friendly powers to rethink their tone and approach. For adversaries, the message is both cautionary and emboldening. It shows that India is not hesitant to confront even the loudest voices on the global stage, which raises the stakes for those who might consider underestimating its resolve. At the same time, it inspires other countries that have long remained silent in the face of Western dominance. The idea that one nation can push back so directly creates a ripple effect, encouraging others to adopt a bolder posture. For global publics, ordinary people across continents, the message is even more visceral. It plays into the broader narrative of a changing world order. Many are wary of decades of American dominance, and the sight of a U.S. leader being put in his place resonates as a symbol of balance being restored. The language used is simple enough to be understood universally, and that simplicity amplifies its impact. Instead of bureaucratic jargon, it is raw and relatable, which is why it spreads quickly and embeds itself into collective memory. Ultimately, the dual message to domestic and international audiences is about dignity and equality. At home, it tells citizens that their voice is strong and respected. Abroad, it tells nations that India is no longer passive but a confident player willing to challenge arrogance. Together, these messages reshape the perception of India's place in the world, not as a nation waiting for recognition, but as one already commanding it. So let this moment register. This is not just about Jaishankar vs Trump. It's about every leader, every nation, deciding whether they walk softly and carry only weak sticks, or whether they stand up, call out arrogance, and demand the respect their people deserve. Because when you demand respect, sometimes the loudest echo is not in your golden halls, but in the stunned silence of those who expected compliance. And that silence, it's your victory. Stay alert, stay questioning, because the world is changing, and those who refuse to be silenced are the ones leading the new narrative. Thank you.